The Black Stallion had ruled the open plains near Canyon Ridge Ranch like a legend carved from the desert itself. For 7 long weeks, every wrangler who tried to break him left with shattered pride and bruised bones. No one could get within 40 feet of the wild horse without being charged. Folks in town called him Devil's Shadow. Ranch hands called him a nightmare. But when 11-year-old Ethan Walker stepped onto the ranch that warm Thursday morning, he said something no one expected. He said he could calm the beast. Ranch owner Samuel Hayes stood on his wooden porch, arms crossed, watching the skinny kid with sandy hair approach the north corral. The horses inside huddled together, uneasy and restless. And out in the far pasture, the black Mustang stood alone, his dark coat shining like polished coal under the rising sun. His muscles moved like coiled springs, his ears sharp, his eyes burning with warning. Samuel had seen a lot of horses in his 58 years, but nothing like this one. "Kid," Samuel called out, stepping down from the porch, "you need to stay away from that Mustang. He's dangerous." Ethan didn't stop walking. His small boots kicked up dust as he moved toward the fence, his eyes locked on the stallion with an expression Samuel couldn't quite place. It wasn't fear. It wasn't pride. It was something deeper, something heavy for a child to carry. "He's not dangerous," Ethan said softly. "He's scared." Those words made Samuel stop in his tracks. Scared? This horse? The same stallion that had torn down 2 fences, scattered cattle across 3 pastures, and nearly trampled his best wrangler? "How would you know that?" Samuel asked. Ethan finally turned around, and in that moment, Samuel saw something in the boy's eyes he hadn't expected. A sadness that didn't belong on the face of an 11-year-old. A quiet understanding of loss. A knowledge of pain. "Because that's how I felt," Ethan said. "Before my dad died." Samuel felt a sting in his chest. The boy's aunt, Nancy Walker, had mentioned that Ethan had been through a rough year. She didn't give details, but Samuel could see the truth of it now, standing right in front of him. "Ethan," Samuel said carefully, "that Mustang came out of nowhere. He's been charging at anyone who steps on this land. I've called the Bureau to take him away." Ethan stiffened. "Take him where?" Samuel didn't answer right away. He didn't want to lie, and he didn't want to say it. "They'll try to relocate him," Samuel finally said, "but if they can't..." Ethan swallowed hard. "They'll put him down." The hurt in his voice cut through the warm morning air. And before Samuel could say anything more, the boy walked straight up to the fence, ignoring every warning he'd been given. The Mustang stopped pacing, his ears perked, his head lifted. For the first time since he'd appeared on the ranch, the great black stallion didn't lower his head in threat. He didn't paw the ground. He didn't snort with anger. He watched the boy. Slow, quiet, curious. "Hey there," Ethan whispered. "It's okay. I know you're looking for someone." The stallion took one slow step forward. Samuel felt his breath catch. Another step, and then another. The Mustang stopped just a few feet away from the fence, his dark eyes softening as he studied the boy who stood smaller than the fence rail itself. Ethan didn't reach out. He didn't push. He just stood still, letting the stallion come to him. Inside the ranch house, Nancy Walker stepped onto the porch, holding her apron tight against the morning breeze. "Sam?" she called. "Everything all right?" Samuel didn't answer. He couldn't take his eyes off the impossible sight in front of him. "How long has Ethan lived with you?" Samuel asked, not looking away from the stallion. 6 months, Nancy said with a sigh. "After the accident." Samuel nodded slowly. "What happened to his dad?" he asked. Nancy's face fell. "Fire. How's fire up in Wyoming?" Ethan made it out. His father didn't. Samuel felt a heavy ache settle in his chest. No wonder the boy carried such weight in his eyes. Out in the pasture, the stallion lowered his head just enough that Ethan could feel the warm breath against his hands. The mighty horse's body relaxed. the tight muscles loosening as if he finally found something he had been searching for. Something. Or someone. "Sam?" Nancy whispered, stepping beside him. "Do you see that?" Samuel didn't reply. He couldn't, because right there, under the bright Arizona sun, the wildest horse he had ever seen had stopped fighting, stopped running, stopped fearing, all because of a boy who looked like he'd lost everything. The stallion let out a soft sound, almost like a sigh, and Ethan answered with a whisper. "I know," he said. "I miss him too." Samuel took a step back, shaken. There was something happening here that he couldn't explain, something bigger than horses and ranch fences. Something that felt like the beginning of a story he wasn't ready for. But he was sure of one thing. Whatever this boy and the stallion shared, it went deeper than anyone on the ranch understood. Ethan stood at the fence while the morning sun climbed higher over Canyon Ridge Ranch. The black stallion's breath brushed against his fingers, warm and steady, like the horse was trying to remember something long forgotten. Samuel Hayes had seen wild horses calm down before, but never like this. It was as if the Mustang had chosen the boy, not the other way around. "I don't understand it," Samuel said quietly to Nancy. "That horse tried to tear the barn door off 2 nights ago. Now look at him." Nancy held her arms close around her. "Ethan has a way with animals. Back home, dogs, cats, even the neighbor's bull used to follow him around." She paused. "His dad was like that too." The stallion lifted his head suddenly. His ears twitched. His muscles tightened. For a moment Samuel feared the calm was ending, but the horse wasn't angry. He was listening. Then he turned his head toward the ridge. "Something's wrong," Ethan whispered. "He hears something we don't." The stallion pawed the ground once, hard. Dust rose in a thin cloud. Then he looked back at Ethan and shook his head the way a horse does when trying to urge another to move. "He wants us to follow him," Ethan said. Samuel frowned. "Follow him where? That ridge is dangerous. Coyotes, cliffs, old mine shafts. No kid is going out there." Ethan didn't argue. He just kept watching the stallion, as if he was waiting for a silent instruction. The horse pawed again, more urgently this time. Nancy stepped closer. "Sam, maybe he's leading us to something. What could a horse possibly be leading us to?" The stallion let out a deep sound, half whinny, half cry. It echoed across the ranch in a way that made every hair on Samuel's arms rise. The horse turned sharply and trotted toward the far side of the pasture. He stopped at the fence gate, looking back at the boy. "Please," Ethan said. "Let me go." Samuel felt torn between fear and something else he didn't want to admit. Hope, a wild stallion trying to communicate, wasn't normal. But nothing about this situation had been normal from the moment Ethan stepped onto the ranch. Finally, Samuel sighed. "All right. But I'm going with you. We stick together. And we move slow. Understood?" Ethan nodded hard. Nancy handed Ethan his small denim jacket. "Be careful," she whispered. Samuel grabbed his old leather gloves, the ones he only wore when trouble was coming. He opened the gate. The stallion backed up just far enough to give them space to step through. Then, with a toss of his head, he moved toward the ridge, his hooves striking the dry ground with purpose. Ethan stayed close to Samuel as they followed, walking along the fence line and then across the open field toward the rocky slope. The higher they climbed, the more the wind picked up, carrying the faint scent of smoke. Ethan tugged at Samuel's sleeve. "Do you smell that?" Samuel nodded slowly. "Yeah, and I don't like it." The stallion stopped at a narrow path marked by broken brush and fresh hoofprints. Not from him, smaller ones, uneven ones. "Those tracks," Samuel said, dropping to examine them, "looks like a horse in trouble, or scared." Ethan knelt beside him. "He's showing us where they went." They followed the tracks deeper into the ridge until they reached a tight curve between 2 tall rock walls. Just ahead, the ground dipped sharply. Samuel's heart threatened to stop. At the bottom of the drop, tangled in a cluster of thorn bushes and loose rocks, lay a chestnut mare. Her left leg was twisted. Her breathing was weak. "Oh no," Ethan whispered. The stallion let out a distressed cry and moved down the slope with surprising control. He nudged the mare's neck gently, careful not to cause more pain. "She's his," Ethan said. "His mate." Samuel felt a heavy knot settle in his stomach. No wonder he's been so wild. He's been trying to protect her. The mare lifted her head weakly when Ethan approached. She didn't pull away. She didn't panic. She just looked at him, as if she already knew he wasn't there to hurt her. "Sam," Ethan said in a shaky voice, "we have to help her. We can't leave her here." Samuel scanned the terrain. "We'll need ropes, a sling, and 2 strong ranch hands at least. It's going to take work to get her out safely." The stallion pushed his head against Ethan's shoulder, not in anger, in trust. It was as if he was giving the boy the responsibility of his entire world. Samuel stood. "I'll head back and get the equipment. You stay right here with her. Don't move from this spot." Ethan nodded, placing his small hand on the mare's neck. The stallion circled protectively around them. Samuel gave one last look before climbing back up the ridge. He'd been ranching his whole life. He thought he'd seen everything, but he had never seen a wild stallion hand his heart over to a child, and he had no idea what it meant. As Samuel disappeared over the ridge, Ethan whispered to the injured mare, "We're going to help you. I promise." The stallion lowered his head beside Ethan, touching him gently. They waited. And as they did, Ethan wondered if saving this mare would change everything, for the stallion, for the ranch, and maybe even for him. Samuel returned faster than Ethan expected, leading 2 ranch hands, Carlos and Ben, each carrying thick ropes, canvas straps, and a wooden brace. Sweat covered Samuel's brow even though the air had grown cooler on the ridge. He didn't waste a second. "Where is she?" Samuel asked. Ethan pointed. The chestnut mare lay as fragile as a fallen leaf, her breathing shallow, her eyes half closed. The black stallion stood protectively over her, muscles tight but no longer aggressive. Instead, he seemed desperate, as if every second mattered. Carlos whistled under his breath. "That's one bad fall." "We can save her," Ethan said quickly. "We have to?" Samuel studied the slope, the unstable rocks, the thorn bushes, the mare's angle. "It'll be tough," he said. "But we're going to try." The stallion let out a low rumble, his dark eyes fixed on Samuel. "It's okay," Ethan whispered, placing a small hand on the stallion's neck. "He's here to help." For a long moment, man and Mustang stared at each other. Samuel saw something in those eyes. Fear, hope, pleading. Then the stallion stepped back just enough to let them near the injured mare. "Careful," Samuel said. "No sudden moves." They wrapped the mare's body with canvas straps, working slowly and talking softly to keep her calm. Ethan stayed close, holding her head, stroking her muzzle every time her breathing hitched. "You're doing great, girl," he whispered. When everything was secured, Samuel gave the signal. "Easy now. Pull on my count." With steady strength, Carlos and Ben lifted the mare using the sling while Samuel guided her body around the rocks. It took every bit of force they had, every bit of patience, every inch of careful movement. But finally, they got her to level ground. "She's out," Ethan breathed, tears filling his eyes. "We did it." The stallion pressed his head to Ethan's shoulder again, but this time it wasn't fear. It wasn't urgency, it was gratitude. "We're not done," Samuel said, checking the mare's leg. "Her bone's not broken, it's sprained. She can heal, but we need to get her to the ranch." "We'll bring the trailer up as far as we can," Carlos said. "Good," Samuel replied. "Let's move." The stallion walked beside them the whole way, never leaving his mare's side. He nudged her gently, encouraging her, as if telling her she was safe now. Ethan walked on her other side. By the time they reached the ranch road, Nancy was already waiting with blankets and water. "Bring her in slow," she called, nice and easy. They loaded the mare onto the trailer with careful hands. The stallion reared once, panicked when she disappeared inside, but Ethan stepped in front of him. "She's okay," he said softly. "Come with me." And just like magic, the stallion stopped, lowered his head, and followed Ethan back toward the ranch. No rope, no bridle, no force, just trust. They spent hours tending to the mare. Samuel wrapped her leg. Nancy kept her warm. Ethan stayed by her side the whole time. The stallion paced outside the stall, restless but no longer wild with rage. When the mare finally settled, Samuel stepped back and crossed his arms. "Well," he said, "that settles it." Ethan looked up. "Settles what?" "That stallion didn't just pick any horse to help him. He picked us. Or he picked you." Ethan blinked. "Me?" Samuel nodded. "I don't know how. I don't know why. But that Mustang listens to you like you're part of his herd." Quote. Carlos added, "Kid, I've never seen anything like it." Ben nodded. "It's like he knows you." Ethan looked at the stallion, then at the mare resting behind him. "He just needed help," he said quietly. "Everyone needs help sometimes." Samuel felt a knot tighten in his chest. The boy wasn't just talking about the horses. He was talking about himself. Nancy stepped forward. "Sam, Ethan needs a place to stay, a place to heal, maybe this ranch." "This ranch is his," Samuel said before she could finish. Nancy blinked. "Are you sure?" Quote. "Positive," Samuel said, "if he wants it." Ethan stared up at Samuel, stunned. "You mean I could stay?" Quote. "For as long as you want," Samuel said. "This is a working ranch. This is a family ranch. And right now, this family includes you." Ethan pressed his lips together, fighting tears. "Thank you." Samuel put a hand on his shoulder. "You saved that mare's life. And that stallion's too. You brought something to this ranch we didn't know we were missing." "What's that?" Ethan asked. "Heart," Samuel said. The mare healed slowly. The stallion stayed close every day, and Ethan visited him morning and evening, sitting by his pasture, talking to him in quiet tones that only they understood. 1 week later, the mare stood on all 4 legs again. She stepped out of the stall gingerly. The stallion nickered, brushing his head against her neck. Samuel stood beside Ethan. "Looks like they'll be all right." Ethan nodded. "She'll run again." "And him?" Samuel asked. Ethan smiled. "He'll stay." The stallion turned toward Ethan, took a few slow steps, and bowed his head until it touched the boy's chest. Ethan stroked his mane. "I'm here," he whispered. For the first time in weeks, the ranch felt peaceful. For the first time in months, Ethan felt home. And for the first time in his life, the black stallion had found someone he trusted completely. Ethan Walker. The kid no one expected. The kid who turned a wild Mustang into a guardian. The kid who healed a family, made of both people and horses.